Hey guys, so today we're going to be discussing our homework assignment from last night, which was to read the first chapter of The Hunger Games. And then we're going to go ahead and read chapter 2 of The Hunger Games and compare it to Jonas and the Giver. So go ahead and take out your notebooks, open it up to the first clean page, and write the date in the top right-hand corner. Today is August 21st. We can go ahead and write the objective for today. Today's objective is I can explain the role choice plays in a dystopian novel. So last night you all read chapter 1 of The Hunger Games. And The Hunger Games is another dystopian novel. And we know it's a dystopian because the community is being controlled by an outside force, by the government. They're under constant surveillance. And there are a lot of rules and regulations that they must follow, just like Jonas in The Hunger Games. Now that might be a little bit difficult for you to understand because in The Hunger Games there's a lot of poverty and hunger. And in Jonas's community there's no poverty or hunger. But either way, they're both still dystopias because of the way that they have no choice. Jonas cannot choose what he wants to be when he grows up. You do not choose your spouse. You do not choose your child. The entire realm of choice is taken away from the community members. It's very similar in the Hunger Games. You do not get to choose what you do for a living. You do not get to choose whether or not you want to enter the reaping. You do not get to choose whether you're going to be making enough money to pay for food. These are all things that are forced upon you. So we see that Katniss's family is very poor to the point where they're hunting food just to be able to eat. There are peacekeepers who are enforcing the laws so that you do not have a choice whether to follow the rules of the government. So the main similarity between the dystopia of Katniss's world and the dystopia of Jonas's world is that the people in the community have no choice. Now, if you think back into what we read in the Hunger Games last night, we can fill out the chart for your I&M. So if you take out that chart, that first column has us filling out information about the characters. Now, I just listed the three main characters in this chapter. That was Katniss, our main character and the narrator, Prim, her younger sister, and Gale, her best friend. The setting of the first chapter of The Hunger Games and the entire book, The Hunger Games, is a dystopia. It is a country that is in the future, where the United States is now. But what happened is there was a big war. And so the United States as we know it no longer exists, and instead we have this dystopian society. As we know, there are a lot of problems in this dystopian society. There's poverty. Katniss's family is extremely poor. There's hunger. And children are sent to fight to the death in games called the Hunger Games. So like we found out in chapter 1, after the war, the capital won the war, and as a punishment for all the suffering, they make these Hunger Games happen every year. And in the Hunger Games, they send children off to fight to the death. So the event that takes place in chapter 1 was the reaping. This is where they select the names of the two children who are going to fight in the Hunger Games. And unfortunately, Katniss's little sister Prim is selected. There aren't really a lot of solutions. If you're poor, you're going to stay poor. If you're hungry, you're going to stay hungry. And the community members have no choice but to enter their names into the reaping. However, the book does tell us that if you are poor and hungry, the capital will allow you to enter your name multiple times in exchange for one bag of extra food for the year. So, if you're really poor, like Katniss is, her and Gale entered their names multiple times into the reaping to get extra food for their family. It's not a really great solution, but it does exist. So today we're going to read Chapter 2 of the Hunger Games, and we're going to fill out the same chart in our small groups, where you're going to list the characters, the setting, the problems, the events, and the solutions. You'll be working with your small groups at a level 1, and then you'll answer the questions in the independent practice and prove it. Get started.